that is sum is finite, well defined if and only if that P is strictly greater than 1. Okay. So which means if I put P equal to 1, it's divergent. In fact, if I take sigma 1 by n, right, then one can show that if I keep adding 1 plus half plus 1 by 3 and so on, it won't turn out to be finite. So that goes to infinity. Okay. So tends to infinity. Fine. So this sum is not finite. Okay. In fact, long back, maybe in around 1350, Orisme proved that this is infinite, or in our language now I can say sigma 1 by n diverges. Okay. And his idea was following. Maybe I'll go to next page. Yeah. Shall I go to next page? Have you noted the points? So Orisme proved sigma 1 by n diverges, and the idea was following. Like if I take 1 plus half plus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 4 plus 1 by 5 and so on. So 1 is bigger than half, 1 by 3 is bigger than 1 by 4. So I can say these two terms together are bigger than 1 by 4. Then next four terms 1 by 5, 1 by 6, 1 by 7, 1 by 8 and so on. So those next four terms, all of them will be bigger than 1 by 8 and so on. Okay, now you see, in fact, each term turns out to be half, 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 half. So how many halves we get? Infinitely many. And therefore, I'll get essentially the sum will be infinite. So if this is infinite, 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by n, that is bigger than that. So even that has to be infinity. That was the idea. Of course, you can make all these things little more formal, etc. But we should understand historically how people use those ideas. In fact, these such ideas are useful while solving problems. Okay. Let me tell you one more nice, interesting thing related to sigma 1 by n. In fact, later Euler proved that there are infinitely many primes using this series. So Euler proved there are infinitely many primes. Since my interest is number theory, always I keep saying about some results from number theory. So there are infinitely many primes, and Euler's proof was something like this. So sigma 1 by n is divergent. So it's based on, so we know that sigma 1 by n diverges, or it means answer is infinity actually. Okay, so in some sense, right? Now suppose possible there are finitely many primes. So let's say P1, P2, Pk, only finitely many primes. Now I know every number I can always factorize as product of primes. So P1 raised to alpha 1, P2 raised to alpha 2, so on up to Pk raised to alpha k. That is Euclid's result, right? And therefore, if I look at this series, 1 plus 1 by P1 plus 1 by P1 square and so on, into 1 plus 1 by P2 plus 1 by P2 square and so on, up to 1 plus 1 by Pk, because we are assuming there are finitely many such primes, Pk square and so on. Now you see, if I take product, every 1 by n I can generate. Suppose my number is, suppose for example, P1 square P2, right? Then you see that when I take this product, from first bracket I'll pick up this term, from second bracket I'll pick up this term, and from all other brackets I'll pick up 1, and that will give me something like 1 by P1 square P2. Is it right? Okay, so I'll get 1 by n. So you see that when I take this product, every 1 by n occurs in denominator. So essentially this is nothing but sigma 1 by n, right? And now what happens? So left hand side is infinity, whereas right hand side, if I assume that primes are finite, so this will be all finite. So there are finitely many terms. Each sum is actually 1 upon 1 minus 1 by P1, right? So each sum is finite and such finitely many brackets. So I get infinity equal to some finite number, which is a contradiction. And therefore, the number of primes must be infinity. Okay, that was Euler's proof. By the way, let me just go back. I'll write down here. Yeah. So whenever it converges, the sum turns out to be 1 upon 1 minus r. Okay. Whereas for the P series, the answers are not easy. One knows series converges if and only P is greater than 1, but the actual sums are not so obvious or so easy. Okay, so like for example, again, Euler proved sigma 1 by n square is pi square by 6, but whereas for a 1 by n cube, it's not something in simple form. Okay, so like pi square by 6. So all even powers are comparatively easier. You can find out those answers, and again, those answers usually are found by Fourier series. Okay, so finding sums of P series is not easy, but at least for geometric series, the sum is known. It's sigma. It's 1 by 1 minus r. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is about sigma 1 by n. Fine. And Euler's proof of there are infinitely many primes using sigma 1 by n is divergent. Okay. Yeah. So then in fact people kept on giving various series and their sums. So like for example in around 1350 Richard Suseth, he proved that sigma n upon 2 raised to n, this sum turns out to be, of course, they were not using these notations, etc. They were writing everything in words. So he proved that this sum is 2. Okay. We'll try to prove this, fine, when we start solving problems. Okay. Then around 1400, just now, in fact, I gave lecture on Madhava. So around 1400, in fact, Madhava gave series for tan inverse x. So that is x minus x cubed by 3 plus x raised to 5 by 5 and so on. And we know special case of this. When you put x equal to 1, you get pi by 4 is 1 minus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 5 and so on. Okay, so that's about some series, some standard series. You should also remember some uh, standard answers like E is 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial, 1 by 2 factorial, and so on. Or more generally, E raised to x is 1 plus x by 1 factorial plus x square by 2 factorial, x cubed by 3 factorial, and so on. Then we have series for sin x, cos x. They are also known as Taylor's or Maclaurin series. So what is series for sin x? X minus x cubed by 3 factorial plus x raised to 5 by 5 factorial minus x raised to 7 by 7 factorial and so on. And cos of x is equal to 1 minus x square by 2 factorial plus x raised to 4 by 4 factorial minus x raised to 6 by 6 factorial and so on. In fact, using these three series, Euler proved using complex numbers that e raised to ix is cos x plus I sin x using these three series. And in fact, as a special case, if I put x equal to pi, what I get is e raised to I pi is cos pi is minus 1, sin pi is 0, or e raised to I pi plus 1, that is 0. And that was in fact judged as the most beautiful formula in mathematics on internet in last century. So that is due to Euler. So you should know all such standard series because maybe in while solving some problems they are useful. Fine. This also, in fact, looking at that series for sine and cos, you can easily see some properties. Like, for example, sine contains all odd powers, and therefore you can understand like why sine turns out to be odd function. If I take sine of minus x, it is minus sine x. If I take cos of minus x, that is plus cos x. So cos is even function, sine is odd function, and that is clear from these infinite series expansions. Fine. So that's about some standard expansions. Let's go ahead. Okay. In fact, you can remember one more thing like log 2 is 1 minus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 minus 1 by 4 plus 1 by 5 and so on. Okay. So that's important example. Later on, we'll see uses of this. Okay. And now we'll start with the core theory of infinite series. Okay. So, like for example, when I say sigma xn converges, right, as nth term, right, xn sequence xn converges to 0. I'm not saying the sum is 0, sequence xn tends to 0. Okay. So, for example, like sigma 1 by n square converges, that is finite, right? It converges, and therefore it implies if I just look at sequence 1 by n square, that tends to 0. Is that okay? But converse is not true. So like xn tends to 0 may not imply series converges. That is not true. And standard example, as we saw, like 1 by n sequence tends to 0, but sigma 1 by n is not convergent, it diverges. Okay. And therefore how can we use the result? So in what way we can use the result? What I can say is following: if xn does not tend to 0, because if xn tends to 0 I can't say anything about series, but if xn does not tend to 0, then surely I can say something. What can we say? Sigma xn cannot be convergent, so it has to be divergent. All of you agree? Because if at all sigma xn converges, xn must tend to 0. So contrapositive, xn does not tend to 0 implies sigma xn is not convergent, right? P implies q is equivalent to not q implies not p, right? So that's called as contrapositive. So far fine. Anybody has any doubt so far? Uh, or shall we go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as I said, in fact, finding the sum of the series is not in general easy, right? But saying series converges or diverges, that means the sum is finite or infinite, right? That is easier to decide by what is known as a test of convergence. Okay. So we'll see various tests of convergence. All these things will be useful for even TY students, like it will be revision of the whole chapter. So test of convergence. Okay. So if sigma mod an converges, then sigma an converges. Now this kind of convergence, that is called a stronger convergence. It is absolute convergence. Okay. So that's called as absolute convergence. So if series converges absolutely, I can say about original series that is also convergent. Okay. But again, converse is not true. But not conversely, converse is not true. If sigma an converges, okay, that does not imply sigma mod n converges. Okay. And again, we have already done this example just few pages back. So if I look at 1 minus half plus 1 by 3 minus 1 by 4, that series converges to log 2. So this is convergent, right? But if I take absolute value, mod of every term, then it is 1 plus half plus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 4. That is sigma 1 by n, and that is divergent. So this diverges. Okay. Now such series for which series converges but not absolutely, they are called as conditionally convergent series. They are called as conditionally convergent. Fine. So we have, once again, we have two concepts: series converges and series converges absolutely. Absolutely means take mod of every term, so take all positive terms. Fine. And then absolute convergence will imply convergence of the series, but not conversely. Series convergence may not imply absolutely, and in that case we call it as conditionally convergent series. So here is one standard example in front of you. Okay. And therefore, as a result of this, whenever we are going to see the test of convergence, we'll essentially deal with positive or what I can say series of positive terms, because if at all I have negative terms, I can work with mod, and once it converges absolutely, I can surely say about the original series. Okay. So here onwards, as far as writing test of convergence is concerned, I'll assume that our terms are positive. Series is series of positive terms. So let's assume, so consider sigma n with all n's positive. Fine. Because if they are negative, instead of n, I'll deal with mod n. Okay. Yeah. So three important tests are comparison, ratio, and root. Okay. So as far as comparison is concerned, suppose we are given some series sigma an, right? We want to check whether this converges or diverges. I'll compare with some known series, known example. Compare with some known series sigma bn. Okay. So what are known some standard examples, known examples? One, geometric series with ratio less than 1, right? And other p series, sigma 1 by n raised to p converges if and only p is greater than 1. Okay, so you can use those two examples as standard examples to compare. Okay. Now I can say one by one, if an is less than or equal to some less than or equal to bn for every n, right? Then this converges. That means this is finite will imply this is finite. Okay. Or even if I take say 2 times, 3 times, half times, or more generally some k times bn, even then sigma bn converges implies sigma n converges. Or even if I skip first few terms and some stage onwards, I have inequality like an is less than k times bn for all n greater than n naught. Still, right, first few terms won't change the result. So then sigma bn converges implies sigma an converges. Okay. But it's one way result. If sigma n converges, I can't say about sigma bn. In fact, we don't know about sigma n, we know about sigma bn. Okay. So if sigma bn converges, that implies sigma bn converges implies sigma n converges. Okay. But a better result, or what is known as practical form or limit form, so this is called as many times theoretical form. So limit form or practical form is following. So you take, in fact, ratio limit an by bn as n tends to infinity. Suppose this limit exists and is non-zero. Okay. In fact, once it is non-zero, it will be greater than 0. All of you agree, right? Because already I know I am dealing with positive terms, series of positive terms. So if limit is not 0, right, that will be positive. Fine. So limit should be positive. In that case, in fact, sigma n and sigma bn behave alike. So what I mean by behave alike, so if this converges, this converges, and if this diverges, then this also diverges. Is that fine? So the behavior of both series turns out to be same. Okay, so that's comparison test. Maybe if you want, you can note down the points, and I'll go to next page for ratio and root. Fine, shall we go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that is about comparison test. Fine. So for example, like suppose we are given, say, 1 by sigma 1 by n square plus n plus 1, right? Now you see directly it's not some standard series, right? But it's more or less like 1 by n square, and I know 1 by n square is standard. So I can compare this series with some standard known series, right? And so for example, if I take ratio, in this case limit an by bn, I get n square upon n square plus n plus 1, and you can check limit will turn out to be 1, right? So limit is 1 means both behave alike. I know this is convergent, so that will imply this is also convergent, right? So that is how one uses comparison test, right? Let's go ahead with ratio and root test. Okay, and now essentially I'll say the limit or practical form, right? So that's useful rather than theoretical form. So the types are somewhat similar. This was root test was due to Cauchy. This was due to D'Alembert. So the ratio test is following. So if you can't compare with some standard series, like for example, if I give you sigma, say n factorial by 2 raised to n, okay, or maybe I can give you even like, say for example, n square by 2 raised to n, okay. Now this is neither P series, it's not directly P series because I have a term like this. It's not even geometric. If that would have been only 1 by 2 raised to n, that is geometric. So it's a mixed one of geometric and P series, right? So if you can't compare with one particular example, one particular type, basically what you can do is you can use ratio. So where you compare the two terms of the series itself. Fine. So again, I'm assuming that we have series sigma n with n's are positive. Fine. And you consider limit n tends to infinity of a n plus 1 by n. Suppose this limit exists, then L is greater than 1 implies series converges. L is less than 1 implies series. Sorry, sorry,
Sir, less than one
sorry, sorry,
conversion.
sorry, sorry. So suppose this limit is L. Suppose if L is less than 1, then that implies series converges. If that L is greater than 1, series diverges. And if L is equal to 1, you can't conclude. So we say test fails because there are examples where L is 1 and series is convergent, L is 1 and series is divergent. Okay, essentially take sigma 1 by n, sigma 1 by n square. For both of them, L is 1, but this is divergent, this is convergent. Okay, so we say test fails. You can't conclude anything from the limit. Okay, so that's about ratio test. And they are more or less of same hierarchy. Sometimes if ratio doesn't work, in few cases like root works. Okay, so limit n tends to infinity, you take an raised to 1 by n. I'm not writing mod because we are assuming an is positive. So take limit n raised to 1 by n. Suppose this limit is L, fine. Then L is, conclusions are same. So L is less than 1 implies series converges. L is greater than 1, series diverges. And L is equal to 1, test fails. So no conclusion can be made. Okay, anything can happen. Okay, so we say test fails, it's inconclusive. Okay, now if uh, root test gives me L, right, then even ratio test will give me L. But sometimes it may happen like ratio test may not give me something, but root may give me some answer. Fine. So we'll try to use at max ratio test, but sometimes in fact root is convenient. Okay, so that's about ratio and root test. Okay, quickly note down and we can go ahead. Yeah. So two more tests of convergence. One is one is Leibniz test for alternating series, and one is due to Cauchy condensation test. Okay. So we have sequence say an which are greater than 0. An is monotonic decreasing and an tends to 0, right? So then if I take a1 minus a2 plus a3 minus a4 and so on, that's called as, so alternately plus minus, right? Then this series converges. And again, standard example is like 1 minus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 minus 1 by 4 and so on. So if I look at sequence 1 by n, 1 by n's are all positive, 1 by n is monotonic decreasing, 1 by n tends to 0. So all three conditions are satisfied by 1 by n, and therefore I can conclude that this series converges. Okay, but once again, saying series converges is comparatively easier than rather finding the sum in that case. Like whenever it converges, what will be the sum? That is more difficult. Okay, so we'll see initially some problems. When we start solving problems, we'll see like some techniques how to find out the sum. Okay, yeah, Cauchy condensation test. So once again, ANs are positive, AN is monotonic decreasing. Okay, then in that case, A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus A4 plus A5 and so on, I mean original series converges if and only if from same series I pick up a little more convenient, what you can say, uh, new series, uh, that is A1 plus 2A2 plus 4A4. So essentially I'm replacing A2 plus A3 by 2A2. Okay, because it's decreasing, A3 is less than A2. Then A4, A5, A6, A7 I can replace by 4A4 and so on. So 8, 8 and so on. Okay, so original series converges if and only if this converges, and this is many a times easier, particularly when your problems contain log. Okay, this is easy because what happens is when I write it in this form, it's like 2 raised to k, a 2 raised to k, right? 2 raised to k will be like k log 2, k log 2. Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there was some internet issue here. Pragati More, your video has got on. If you can off your video, that will be better. Yeah, thank you. So particularly when your problems are having log, okay, or even that sigma 1 by n raised to p, I can convert to a geometric series using this Cauchy condensation test. Okay, so that's about various tests of convergence. So far, okay, all of you. So we can start with problems. Just let's quickly go through what we saw today, and we can start solving problems. Yeah. So concept of infinite series, that is addition of infinitely many terms, right? Sometimes addition could be infinite, sometimes it could be finite, sometimes it can be tricky, like giving 1 equal to 0. So in that case, we say it's not well defined or it's not convergent. Whenever sum is finite, unique, well defined, we call it as convergent series. Otherwise, it is divergent. Okay, two standard examples are geometric series and a P series. So geometric series converges if and only if ratio mod r is less than 1, right? And in that case, sum is 1 upon 1 minus r. P series converges if and only p is greater than 1. So even if I take p equal to 1, series diverges, which means essentially if I keep adding, the sum will go towards infinity. Okay. In fact, using this result that sigma 1 band diverges, Euler gave a nice proof that there are infinitely many primes, because if primes are finitely many, I get a contradiction like infinity on one side and some finite number on other side. Okay. Yeah. So this first problem, that n by 2 raised to n equal to 2, we'll try to prove it, or I'll show one similar type and you can try to prove it. Remember some standard examples like series e raised to x, sin x, cos x, and so on. Okay. They are useful. Log 2 is 1 minus half plus 1 by 3. This example is useful. In fact, if series converges, absolutely, then series converges, but series converges may not imply absolute convergence, and this is one such example, log 2. Okay. Yeah. Then one, uh, what you can say, obvious result is this: if series converges, xn tends to 0, and therefore if xn does not tend to 0, we can conclude series diverges. Okay. So like for example, if I give you series sigma cos 1 by, now you see as n, so this is my xn, and as n goes to infinity, cos 1 by n goes to cos 0. Cos 0 is 1, so xn does not tend to 0. So I can safely say series diverges. Okay. Yeah. Then we have some test of convergence, right? This was about absolute and conditional convergence. Then we have comparison ratio root. Okay, so yeah, I hope you have noted those conditions. Like in comparison, remember L equal to 0 is not allowed. L should be non-zero. In ratio and root, L equal to 0 is allowed. That is fine. Here L should not be 1. And whereas here L equal to 1 is fine, but L should not be 0. Okay, keep this in mind. So that's about comparison, ratio, and root. Okay. And lastly, Leibniz test for alternating series. So alternately, we have plus minus signs and Cauchy condensation test. Right. So I think we can begin with problems. So what I'll do is I'll give 3 to 4 minutes for you to solve first. Right. So you can give a try, and later on we'll discuss the problem. Fine. So start working. So there are 6 problems in first one, and essentially they are about finding the sum of the series. So as I said, saying that series converges is easier, but once I know it's convergent, to find out the sum is not easy. So we'll see some techniques to find out the sum of the series. Okay, so start with first one. Okay, 3 minutes, and I'll start discussing first problem. So good, people have started putting answers. Okay, so see that it's series of the form n by e raised to n, right? Now, if you try by ratio test or root test, you can see that it will be convergent. So if I take this raised to 1 by n raised to 1 by n, e raised to n raised to 1 by n, right? That is 1 by e. 1 by e is less than 1. So series converges. That is sure, right? But we want to find out the sum of the series. Is that fine? And in this case, again, that is not something obvious. So let's see a technique to find out this one. So I'll use, in fact, series for e raised to x. Okay. So we'll consider this series sigma e raised to minus x. I'll fix value of x. So for fix x, if I consider geometric series, okay, and going from 0 to infinity. This is geometric series, right? So like I can call this as R. So it's like sigma r raised to n. So that is 1 plus r square and so on, right? And I need my r to be less than 1. So I want e raised to minus x should be less than 1. Or I need 1 by e raised to x to be less than 1. Or I need e raised to x to be greater than 1. But 1 is like e raised to 0. So I need e raised to 0 to be less than e raised to x. And which means I need my x to be positive. Okay. So I'll consider for x greater than 0 series e raised to minus x raised to n, right? Where my x is greater than 0. Once x is greater than 0, this number is less than 1. Okay, so series converges, and it converges to what? 1 upon 1 minus r. So 1 upon 1 minus e raised to minus x. Fine. Okay, and now what we do is, in fact, we differentiate term by term. Fine. So there are certain results which TY students know under uniform convergence. Term by term differentiation is valid. So I can differentiate term by term. So taking derivative this side, what I get is summation. Now, do you agree? My first term was corresponding to n equal to 0. First term was 1. So when I take derivative, derivative will become 0, right? First term, for the first term. So I can very well begin with, when I write now sum by taking derivative, n goes from 1 to infinity. And what will be derivative of this? N times e raised to minus derivative of e raised to minus x, that is minus e raised to minus x. Okay. And this side, what I get is derivative will be minus 1 upon minus x square, and into again derivative of that minus e raised to minus x. So that is e raised to minus x. Fine. So check the signs, please. Okay. Now this and this term will cancel. These two terms will cancel. You can check. Fine. So what I get is, in fact, what I get is sigma n e raised to minus x raised to n minus 1 is 1 upon 1 minus e raised to minus x square. Okay, n goes from now 1 to infinity. And now I'll put x equal to 1. So when I put x equal to 1, what I get is on left hand side 1 to infinity n. I'm putting x equal to 1. So I get e raised to minus n plus n minus 1, right? So that is equal to 1 upon 1 minus e raised to minus 1 square. Okay, simplify left hand side. So I get n e raised to minus n, and I'll get one more e raised to 1 that I can take outside. So check e times sigma 1 to infinity n e raised to minus n, right? Check this is equal to, if I simplify this side, e raised to minus 1 is 1 by e, right? So I'll get e square upon e minus 1 square. Check this. Again, 1 e cancels. So what I get is sigma n e raised to minus n. The sum turns out to be e upon e minus 1 the whole square. E upon e minus 1 whole square. Okay. Check carefully the calculations and you see finding sum was not something obvious. Deciding it converges was easier by some ratio test, root test, etc. But finding sum needs some techniques. Okay, so in this case, what we are using, use standard series for a geometric series with e raised to minus x, right? And then differentiate term by term and put x equal to 1. That was the idea. Fine. And now let me say like that sigma n by 2 raised to n, which was proved in 1350, is equal to 2. That you can prove by this technique. So I leave it to you. On same lines, you can prove n into 2 raised to minus n or n by 2 raised to n is equal to 2. So instead of e, you can take series for 2 raised to minus x. Okay. And you can work. Yeah. So we can go ahead. Try to work second problem. Okay. Again, I'll give 3 minutes and then we'll start discussion. After differentiation, we have to just put x equal to 1, as simple as that. Just put x equal to 1. See that differentiation, we just wanted to get that n term, right? Once I differentiate, I get n e raised to minus x raised to something. So to get n term, we differentiated. And now you put x equal to 1. Okay, maybe if you some of you have attended Madhava lecture, or some FISR students, just we have solved this one, sigma k square by k factorial. Yes, so some of you are writing answers. Very good. Veda, that's correct. Yeah, so maybe let's discuss. Now, since already in Madhava I have solved it by some elementary method, let's try some different technique. Essentially, I mean, similar to first one here. So let's try some different technique. Uh, so we have e raised to x. We have e raised to x is equal to sigma x raised to n by n factorial. N goes from 0 to infinity. Okay. I'll differentiate. So taking derivative term by term, which is valid, I'll write n goes from 1 to infinity n x raised to n minus 1 by n factorial. Is that okay? Why I'm writing now from 1 to infinity? Because first term gets derivative will be 0. First term was constant 1, derivative becomes 0, right? So I'll differentiate once again. So e raised to x is equal to summation, right? N into n minus 1 x raised to n minus 2 by n factorial. And now I can say n goes from 2 to infinity because once again that first term will be when I put n equal to 1 x raised to n minus 1, that is x raised to 0, which is 1, that is constant. So derivative will be 0, right? And now I can put x equal to 1. So put x equal to 1. So that implies e raised to 1, that is e, equal to sigma 2 to infinity, right? So I can say n square minus n by n factorial. So that gives me sigma 2 to infinity n square by n factorial, right? Minus n by n factorial, right? So I can cancel out one n. So 1 by n minus 1 factorial. N goes from 2 to infinity. Okay. Now what we want? We want sigma. Just instead of k, I'm writing n now. We want sigma n square by n factorial, right? N goes from 1 to infinity. So that is equal to 1 plus sigma n square by n factorial. N goes from 2 to infinity, right? I'm just separating first term. And why I'm separating? Because this term already we are getting here, right? Okay. And what is second term? So from here, what I get is E equal to sigma n square by n factorial. N goes from 2 to infinity, right? Minus, now when I go on putting values here, n equal to 2. So I get in fact 1 by 1 factorial plus 1 by 2 factorial and so on. So what I get is this implies E equal to this sum minus, check, this is e minus 1, right? Because that first one term is missing, so this is e minus 1, and that means our bracket sigma 2 to infinity n square by n factorial is equal to, I can take it to this side, so that is 2e minus 1. right? So I can put that value here. So it's 1 plus, this is 2e minus 1, that is equal to 2e, right? So we get same answer by some different technique. Okay, so just to avoid repetition, if some of you have attended Madhava session, we have proved it by elementary method. So this is another way. Is that okay? Fine. So if you want to note down, you can just note down whatever, and we can go ahead. In fact, why I'm focusing more on finding sum of series, there are problems in IIT of this type to find the sum, and showing something is convergent is comparatively easier, whereas finding the sum is more difficult, or that needs some techniques. Okay, so we are looking at some techniques here, right, to find the sum. Shall I go back to the problem page? Is it done with this? Is it okay if I go back to the problem page?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Fine. So this answer is 2E. Try third one. 4k upon 4k raised to 4 plus 1. K goes from 1 to infinity. So as usual, maybe you can take some 3 to 4 minutes, and then we'll have discussion. All TY students, you can think of this like your mock test and try to solve the problems, okay, in 3 to 4 minutes. Fine. Yeah. So in fact, little bit of algebra is involved here. So we have that 4k raised to 4 plus 1 term. See if you can factorize that. That's the idea. And in fact, this is well known as Sophie Germain's technique. Okay, Sophie Germain was a French mathematician, though that surname is German. She was a French mathematician. And in those days, in fact, girls were not allowed university education. So she learned with the nickname LaBlanc, Mr. LaBlanc, and did her graduation. So she had correspondence with Lagrange and Gauss, and in fact, if you know about Fermat's last theorem, that is well known, right? So the first case of Fermat's last theorem was proved by Sophie Germain. Okay, in fact, she had uh, good research on elasticity, and her work was used in building Eiffel Tower. In fact, many mathematician physicist work was used in building Eiffel Tower, and uh, in fact, those engineers and mathematicians, scientists, physicists, they are given due credit. Their names are there on plate on Eiffel Tower, but unfortunately, being a lady, her name was not put, so she was not given her credit. Okay. Veda, no, this is convergent. It can't diverge. At least it converges is very much sure, because if it is of what order? N by n raised to 4. So it's something like 1 by n cube, right? So surely it's convergent. It's not divergent. In fact, I have given you to find the sum. So finding sum means they are already convergent. That's given. Yeah. So that's Sophie German technique. Let's see. So if I look at that denominator 4k raised to 4 plus 1. So I'll try to complete the square. So this is 2k square the whole square plus 1 square. I'll add middle term. So that is 2 times 2k square into 1 and subtract again. So this gives me 2k square plus 1 the whole square. Is it right? Minus, now you see that other part turns out to be 2k the whole square. So it's of the form a square minus b square. So what I get is a plus b into a minus b. So this is 2k square plus 2k plus 1 into 2k square minus 2k minus 1, minus 2k plus 1. Check. Is it right? So some little bit of algebra is involved, and this kind of technique complete the square, uh, so add and subtract some square, and you again get difference of square. So that is due to Sophie Germain. So if I now look at 4k upon 4k raised to 4 plus 1, so that is same as 4k upon those two brackets 2k square plus 2k plus 1 into 2k square minus 2k plus 1. And observe, in fact, difference between these two terms is exactly 4k, right? So in fact, I can write it in the form 1 by 2k square minus 2k plus 1 minus 1 by 2k square plus 2k plus 1. Check, right? Because difference will be 2k minus 2k. So that is 4k. Is that fine? So which means if I take sum, k goes from 1 to infinity, 4k upon 4k raised to 4 plus 1. That is summation 1 to infinity 1 by 2k square minus 2k plus 1 minus 1 by 2k square plus 2k plus 1. And now you check its telescopic sum. Go on putting values. K equal to 1. Once I put k equal to 1, I get 1 minus 1 by 5. Right? I put k equal to 2. So my first term will be like 8, 8 minus 4, 4 plus 1, 5. Right? Minus, this will be 8, 8 plus 1, 9, 9 plus 4, 13, and so on. So check alternately. In fact, you get plus minus sign. So terms will keep cancelling, and essentially my answer is going to be 1. So this is again common technique in series, like you get telescopic sum, alternately plus minus, they cancel out with each other. So your answer is 1. Yeah, Veda, good. Okay, all of you, is this fine? Yeah, shall we go ahead? Good. Yeah, someone is asking, can we find limit an by bn to find sum of series? No. Finding sum, it totally depends on your an only, right? It won't depend on bn. Maybe you can get some idea like bound using bn, but to find a sum, you need proper technique only. You can't use some ratio root test. Fine. Okay, so let's go ahead. I mean, I'll go back to problems. Yeah. So I hope fourth one, most of you can do it because you know properties of log. So simplify that log 1 minus 1 by n square. Keep in mind we are starting with n equal to 2. Okay, because if I take n equal to 1, I get log 0, and that is not defined, or so to say minus infinity. So we are starting with n equal to 2. Fine. So I'll wait for 2-3 minutes. You give a try and then we'll discuss. Yes. Someone is saying something. Someone's audio is on. I think if you want to ask something, you can ask. Otherwise, you can keep your audio on mute.
हाँ बोला
Shivam Kanodia, please mute yourself. Shivam.
Yeah. So maybe I can wait for 1 or 2 minutes. Try to answer fourth. I expect at least TY students will get this sum. So hint is simply use properties of log. Okay. Yeah, very good. So some of you have started writing answers. Okay, so maybe we'll see the answer. In fact, already one of you has posted correct answer. So I'll write down the answer. Answer is log of half. Yeah. So let's see like how to find out the sum. In this case, it's easy. Yeah. Minus log 2 is also correct. That's same. Okay. So we have series sigma. We have series sigma n goes from 2 to infinity log of 1 minus 1 by n square. So that is equal to sigma log of n square minus 1 by n square. N square minus 1 gets factored. So that is 2 to infinity log of n plus 1 into n minus 1, right, by n square, or I can say n into n. Fine. So if I use properties of log, this is log of n plus 1 plus log of n minus 1 minus 2 times log n, right? Log of n square is like 2 log n plus log of n minus 1, right? And just now go on putting values 2, 3, 4, and so on. So when I put first term n equal to 2, I get log 3 minus 2 log 2 plus log of 1, right? Then log 4 minus 2 log 3 plus log 2. Then log of 5 minus 2 log 4 plus log of 3, and so on, so on. Log 6 minus 2 log 5 plus log 4. And now you observe like log 3 and log 3 together will cancel with this one, 2 log 3, right? Then log 4 will cancel with 2 log 4, and so on. So terms will keep on cancelling now onwards. So essentially my answer is log 1 minus log 2, right? Log 1 is 0. Log 1 is 0. So essentially I get minus log 2, or it's like log of 2 raised to minus 1, that is log of half. Fine. I hope this is something simpler as compared to earlier one. Yeah, so let's go further. Fine. So try to find out sum for the fifth one. Okay. Now that is something based on, I mean, you see factorial, and which means something based on series for E, right? So answer will be in terms of some E, 2E or some such thing. So you first give a try, and then I'll write down. Again, the problem is little mechanical. Uh, so I hope you can get. You have to just calculate correctly and related to the series of E. So series for E is 1 plus sorry, 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial plus 1 by 2 factorial and so on. Maybe I can wait for 1 or 2 more minutes. Fine. So if you are doing, that's good. Omkar, you can mute yourself. Yeah. So let's see the calculation. I'm saying fifth one. Any answer? I don't see any answer this time. Yeah, here is one answer from Veda. Yeah, Veda, that's fine. Good. Yeah, very good. Akshay. Both of you are from TY. I mean, you are going to appear this time. Okay, very good. All the best. You are doing very good. Keep it up. Fine. So let's see the solution. Okay. So our AN was n plus 1 by n, right? And the series was summation minus 1 raised to n plus 1. Okay. An plus 1 by n factorial. So that is equal. So it's, I think, 1 to infinity, right? So that is 1 to infinity minus 1 raised to n plus 1. I can put value of an plus 1. So that is n plus 1 plus 1 by n plus 1 upon n factorial. So I'll separate out terms. So sigma minus 1 raised to n plus 1. First term will be like n by n factorial, and I can safely divide by that n. So I'll get 1 by n minus 1 factorial, all right? Then plus summation minus 1 raised to n plus 1 upon n factorial 1 to infinity, and plus summation 1 to infinity minus 1 raised to n plus 1 upon that n plus 1 will go as denominator. So check, it's n plus 1 factorial. Fine. Now this sign I can n plus 1 I can replace by n minus 1. That is same. Okay. So this is equal to n goes from 1 to infinity minus 1 raised to n minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial plus sigma minus 1 raised to n, or maybe I can take minus sign outside. I'll change this to minus sign. Fine. I'm taking one minus sign outside. So minus 1 raised to n by n factorial plus sigma minus 1 raised to n plus 1 by n plus 1 factorial. Okay. Now observe our series for e raised to x is 1 plus x by 1 factorial plus x square by 2 factorial and so on. So if I put x equal to minus 1, then I'll get something like this. Right? And so on. I mean, general term will be like minus 1 raised to k by k factorial. And you see, we have similar such terms here. Right? So check, in fact, first, when I put n equal to 1, it will start with 0 factorial. So this is precisely the whole series. So this gives me e raised to minus 1, right? This will start with 1. So first term is missing. So this will be essentially e raised to minus 1 minus 1. And this is starting with, in fact, n equal to 2. When I put n equal to 1, my first term turns out to be this. Okay, but observe this term and this term, they'll cancel each other. So essentially last term is again e raised to minus 1. So if I add all of them, I get e raised to minus 1 plus 1, or it's 1 by e plus 1, or 1 plus e upon e. Yeah, fine, all of you. Okay. So next one, and that is related to, in fact, triangular numbers. So we want to find out the sum 1 plus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 6 plus 1 by 10 and so on. Okay. In fact, we know all these are triangular numbers. So like 1 plus 2, or I can say this way, 1 plus 2, that is 3, right? 1 plus 2 plus 3, that is 6, and so on. So they are all triangular numbers. And we know in general, n triangular number is what? It's 1 plus 2 plus so on up to n. Even one knows formula for this, n plus 1 by 2. In fact, this problem I have taken from Ravi Vakil's book. So there is nice book by Ravi Vakil, Mathematical Mosaics and Patterns. So very interesting book, very nice book. In fact, he talks about so-called Pascal triangle. So like we have Pascal triangle like this, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. I hope all of you know they are essentially binomial coefficients. And let me say again, historically, though we call it as Pascal triangle, much before Pascal, it was done by Indian philosopher poet Pingala in his book Chanda Shastra. In fact, Fibonacci numbers also are there in book Chanda Shastra, and English translations are available. So though we call it as Fibonacci sequence and Pascal's triangle, essentially we should call them as Pingala's sequence and Pingala's triangle. Okay, yeah. So in fact, observe there are many interesting properties of Pascal triangle. Fine, but at least right now I'll focus on this one. If you observe this row, right, or what I should call, it's slant line, okay, or this slant line, right? They are nothing but these triangular numbers, okay. So you take in fact reciprocal of all numbers, 1, 1, 1, 1 by 2, 1, 1, 1 by 4, 1 by 6, sorry, 1, 1 by 3, 1 by 3, 1, 1, 1 by 4, 1 by 6, 1 by 4, 1, and so on. And in fact, if you add these terms, then again you get some interesting things. Like here I get sigma 1 by n, which is divergent, whereas this turns out to be convergent. Okay, so that's the problem. Fine, but I mean, except this interesting part, otherwise finding the sum is something easy, so that all of you can do. Okay. Yeah. So what is this series essentially then? It's sigma 1 by n plus 1 by 2, right? So I can take 2 on numerator side, n goes from 1 to infinity. Find out the sum is easy. Okay, everyone can write, even all FISY students also can attempt and write. And then we'll go ahead. When you are finding sums of series, okay, some useful things are, check whether uh, you get some uh, telescopic sum which keep cancelling. That's one common thing we get, or something geometric. Okay. Yeah, so very good. This time response is fast. Many students are writing answers. Good. Yeah, very good. So yeah, Josh, that's fine. Okay, so I'm writing answer here. I can take that 2 common outside, summation 1 by n plus 1, and we saw this technique, right? I can write it as difference of some fractions. In fact, they are Egyptian fractions. Once your numerator is 1, they are called as Egyptian fractions. Okay, so Egyptians used to work with fractions having numerator equal to 1. Okay. And then what you get is 1 minus half plus 1 by 2 minus 1 by 3 minus plus 1 by 3 minus 1 by 4 and so on. So we keep on getting alternately plus minus, they all cancel, and essentially what we get is 2 times 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's try to finish at least some 2-3 more problems. I hope all of you can see that problem. Second one, discuss the convergence of sigma an and sigma cn. It's from one of JAM papers, where an is minus 1 raised to n upon root n plus 1, and cn is k going from 0 to n, ak a n minus k. Now, this kind of product that is known as Cauchy product of series, like we multiply two polynomials on similar lines, you can multiply two series, that's known as Cauchy product. So we are asked to find, or I mean, check the convergence of sigma n and its Cauchy product with itself. Fine. So I hope the question is clear. Okay. Now, at least immediately you can answer something about sigma n, right? Then we'll go to the sigma cn. What's true about sigma n?
Converges.
Yes. So sigma n is sigma minus 1 raised to n by root n plus 1. So once you get minus 1 raised to n, you alternately go on getting plus minus terms. So which means it's alternating series, right? Then your sequence is like 1 by root n plus 1. They are all positive. That is decreasing sequence. It converges to 0. So all 3 conditions of Leibniz test are satisfied, and therefore sigma n converges, right? So that is something standard by Leibniz test. So let's try to work about sigma cn. Okay. So maybe I'll go to new page. Yeah, Veda, that's fine, correct. Okay, I'll take here itself the new page. So Cn is k goes from 0 to n. Okay. I'll assume that an begins with 0, a naught. Okay, so ak an minus k. Fine. So that is equal to summation k goes from 0 to n, right? Ak will be like minus 1 raised to k upon root k plus 1, right? And this is minus 1 raised to n minus k upon root n minus k plus 1. Okay, I'm adding all of them. So this is like minus 1 raised to n, and I can take it outside because variable is k. So k goes from 0 to n. From numerator, power is minus 1 raised to n, that comes outside, right? So it's root k plus 1 into root n minus k plus 1. And again, you can simplify in various ways. Maybe if you can try to get it as a fraction, difference of fraction, etc., you can try that. Okay. Or I'll show one useful technique. In fact, that's why I selected this problem. So root k plus 1 into root n minus k plus 1, okay, that is less than or equal to k plus 1 plus n minus k plus 1 by 2. What I'm using, root ab is less than or equal to a plus b by 2, right? And what is that called as? AMGM inequality, right?
Less than G.
Yeah. Fine. So advantage is when you have something like k minus k, now the term k minus k cancels, right? This k and k minus k cancel. So what I get is in fact n plus 2 by 2. So this sum is n plus 2 by 2. And therefore if I take reciprocal, so this implies if I take that reciprocal, that is in fact bigger than 2 by n plus 2. Okay. So if I work with mod Cn, why I'm working with mod Cn? So that minus sign should not give us trouble. So mod of Cn is essentially summation 0 to n, right? 1 upon those two roots, right? And that is bigger than summation, sorry, it's not infinity, it's n. So k goes from 0 to n, right? 2 by n plus 2, right? So I can take that 2 by n plus 2 outside. Sigma 1, k goes from 0 to n, that gives me n plus 1. So 2 times n plus 1 upon n plus 2. And which means I see that in fact mod Cn, right, is, so this is surely bigger than 1, right? You can check 2n plus 2 upon n plus 2. So numerator is bigger than denominator, right? So this is greater than or equal to 1. So which surely implies Cn cannot tend to 0 because otherwise mod Cn would tend to 0, whereas mod Cn you see is bigger than 1, and that implies sigma Cn diverges, right? What we know, if series converges, Cn should tend to 0. That does not tend to 0, so sigma Cn diverges. Fine. Yeah. Let's go ahead. So let's see if I can complete these two, that will be good. Read the question. Uh, ABC are real numbers. Which of the values of ABC do not result in convergence of the series? Okay, and question could be even, for example, MSQ type. Okay, so sigma n goes from 3 to infinity. Okay, we have avoided a log n equal to 1 2 because once n is 3 or more, log n is positive. So all terms are essentially then, log n terms will be positive. Okay. So a raised to n upon n raised to b log n raised to c. Okay. Now, as far as series is concerned, let me say, keep this in mind. Uh, if your terms like a raised to n, they are dominant over powers of n. So if I have terms containing this as well as this, right, series behaves like this one. Fine. Again, n raised to b is dominant over log n raised to c. So if we have these two terms, series will behave like n raised to b. Keep this in mind. Now let's try first condition. So suppose if a is less than 1, right, then I know, in fact, series sigma a raised to n converges, geometric series. And as compared to a raised to n, other terms are in fact little less. So n raised to b goes to infinity, log n raised to c will go to infinity, right? But maybe if b is negative, c is negative, they may come in numerator. But still, a raised to n is dominant, right? That goes to 0 much faster. Fine. So the behavior of the series is like a raised to n. Okay. Yeah, Vera, that's correct. So sigma a raised to n converges, and that will imply, in fact, first condition will give me series is convergent. So as I said, keep in mind this way, like a raised to n dominates over all other terms. Fine. So behavior will be like a raised to n. Now once my a is 1, right, now my series is like what? Sigma. Once a is 1, it's like sigma 1 by n raised to b, right, into log n raised to c. And now behavior will be like n raised to b. So I know if b is greater than 1, series converges, p series. So this will be convergent, right? Okay. Now look at, in fact, last one first. Sigma, it's minus 1 raised to n because that's more easy to deal with. Minus 1 raised to n upon n raised to some positive term, log n raised to some positive term, right? So terms are positive, right? Since it is 1 by n raised to something type, it's decreasing, it goes to 0. We have minus 1 raised to n numerator. So it's alternating, and therefore by Leibniz test, this also is convergent. So in fact, three conditions give us that series is convergent, right? So what won't result in convergence? In fact, answer is 3, right? So if I take a equal to 1, b is greater equal to 0, but c is negative, right? You can't ensure that series is convergent. For example, if I take b equal to 0, then I'll get 1 by log n raised to c, and that will be divergent. Okay. Yeah. So that is about problem number 3. Is that okay with this? Fine. So we'll do one more, and maybe then we'll have to stop. Okay. Anyways, I'll be sending PDF, and you can try to solve other problems also. Yeah, in fact, the problem was this. I have not written that whole matrix there. That is again some interesting example. So a matrix is in fact infinite matrix. Okay. And the terms are given as follows. So 0, half, 1 by 4, 1 by 8, all powers of 2, 1 by 2 raised to n, and so on, infinite. Okay. Minus half, 0, half, 1 by 4, right, 1 by 2 raised to n minus 1, and so on. Minus 1 by 4, minus half, 0, and so on, 1 by 2 raised to n minus 2. Okay. Same this way. Okay. It's infinite matrix. Fine. And now the idea is following. Compute sigma aij. I goes from j to, j goes from 1 to infinity, I goes from 1 to infinity, and I goes from 1 to infinity, j goes from 1 to infinity. Okay. Now what it means. So if I, for example, simplify this one, first one, sigma j equal to 1 to infinity, sigma I equal to 1 to infinity, aij. That is sigma j goes from 1 to infinity. I put I equal to 1, 2, 3, and so on. So a1j plus a2j plus a3j and so on, infinitely many terms, right? And what is this? In particular, for jth column, this is a1j, a2j, a3j, and so on. Okay. So I'm counting column wise sums. Okay. So first count, first find this sum. For j equal to 1, I'll get this sum. This sum. For j equal to 2, I'll get this sum. For j equal to 3, I'll get this sum. And observe, in fact, each column sum will turn out to be negative. Okay. And if you add all of them, you can check. In fact, the answer turns out to be minus 2. Okay. And whereas if I add row wise, that is sigma I, sigma j, and check all these answers are positive. Okay. Here in second row also, minus half plus half will cancel. 1 by 4 onwards, I'll get positive. Okay. So answer for column 1 is minus 1, minus half, minus 1 by 4, and so on. And row wise, answer for first row is 1, answer for second is half, answer for third is 1 by 4, and so on. So if I add row wise, what I get is, in fact, it will turn out to be 1 plus half plus 1 by 4, and so on. That is plus 2. And which essentially says, so when you deal with infinite sums, it may happen like row wise sums are positive, column wise sums are negative, right? So I'm adding all those sums, right? But one way I get positive, one way I get negative. Fine. So such things happen when you go to infinite sums, and which means your usual laws of commutativity, associativity, etc., they may not hold for such infinite sums. Okay, that's the point. uh, I think it's 6:30. Maybe I'll stop. If you have some questions to ask, you can ask questions for maybe 5 minutes, and otherwise we'll stop. Okay. I'll send this PDF. So there are some more questions. You can try them at home. Okay. Yeah.
Any doubts or questions, you can ask, sir. I guess no doubts.
Okay. I hope you like that.
No doubts.
Okay. Yeah.
So on behalf of everybody, I thank Mr. Shri Prasad Tambe for another wonderful lecture on series. Now our next lecture will be on 27th, day after tomorrow. Same time, and the link is already shared. You have to just join with the same link. Okay. Thank you all.